right, thank you everyone for being here. And I'll call to order the Finance Investment Committee for Tuesday, January 21st, 3:32 p.m.
No, you don't need to. Do we have anybody online for the public? Let's click on it. Nope. Oh, we do have one. So.
All right. Many meetings of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District will be held in the upper conference room at the district offices located at 201 Vallecitos de Oro, San Marcos, California. The date and time identified above. Members of the public may watch the meeting live via computer. You can go to the district's website to see that. Members of the public may listen to the meeting live on their phone. Toll-free number is 888-788-0099. And prompted, enter the meeting ID and passcode displayed on the district's website. Do we have any public comment?
No, ma'am.
Items for discussion. Fail-safe Buena Reach project acceptance.
Yeah, this one will be headed by our engineering team to go off. This is a project that's been ongoing. So I think Ryan's going to be taking the lead on this one, I believe.
Yeah, you don't often see engineering items at the finance committee, but this is a project we've been working on for about 5 years. We're ready to bring it to project acceptance to the full board, but we did want to bring it to not only the finance committee, but we'll also be bringing it to the engineering equipment committee. But we wanted to give you an update on where we're at, and so we can hopefully get support from the committee and answer any questions you have. And I won't steal any of Ryan's thunder, so
You
I'll
can steal as much thunder as you want.
No,
on this
no,
one.
I'll-
Are we ready? There we go. Thank you, Finance Committee, for having me here today. You might be familiar with this project, the Failsafe Buena Reach project. Last time it was brought to the board was in August of 2023 for contract award at the time. At that time, construction was scheduled to carry on through till July of 2024. This is really an informational item that we plan on bringing to the board in February. It's opportunity to talk about the item and ask any questions you may have before it goes to that open forum in the board. But just as a refresh, the Failsafe Buena Reach is a 16-inch diameter ductile iron pipe. It was originally installed in 1980. It is responsible for conveying secondary effluent or tertiary treated flows out of a metal arc to the ocean outfall. It bypasses treatment at Encina and goes out to the ocean outfall because it's treated water. This pipeline can convey up to 3 million gallons per day. It's not a capacity driven job. It's really a replacement driven job because the 3 prior breaks that have happened in the 2018 to 2020 timeframe shed light on just how badly deteriorated the existing ductile iron pipe was in certain sections. This alignment is called the Buena Reach because Vallecitos shares 50% cost ownership of the land outfall through this alignment, which starts at the east end at Yarrow Drive. It ends at the west end at Aviara Parkway or College Boulevard. Just the color coding on the exhibit. The yellow line work by Community Vita Roadway and here at West Oaks Way is new trenchless CIPP installations or trenchless liners where the existing hose pipe stays in the ground and we rehabilitate it. The red lines were areas where we wanted to install new HDPE pipeline, get away from the ductile iron pipeline, and take on a new alignment. Specifically through here, the pipeline was traveling through the parking lot and actually under some buildings and right adjacent to some really large building foundations that are in this Palomar Oaks business development. So that's not operational friendly. It's very difficult to work on. If in the event there ever is a break, it's a real risk to the district. So we wanted to get it into the right of way, into the roadway of Palomar Oaks Way. That was why we did that there. Similarly, we did a small section of replacement at the west tie-in, largely because it was constructability friendly to do so. And the triangles that you see on the existing pipeline are locations of previous breaks that are shown here in the legend. As mentioned, we have a 50% ownership stake with Buena, so any maintenance, repairs, staff labor, consultant labor, contractor, construction agreements, basically gets split by agreement 50-50. So we went back as early as October 2020 when we first authorized NV5, the engineer of record on this project, with a professional services agreement. Working throughout the course of design and construction, we also, once it became time to go to construction, we authorized Riley CM a PSA for construction management and inspection services. And that was done in February of 2023. We advertised bids and we awarded Freelance Construction a construction agreement for $6.6 million in August of 2023. And we started construction in November of 2023. As I mentioned previously, the original contract time was to carry us through to July 2024. However, there were several factors throughout construction which slowed progress. Some of those included elevated groundwater conditions and difficulties in general with the cleaning and inspection and lining of the rehabilitation segments of the pipeline. That did slow construction down, and it delayed us approximately 4 months. Riley CM performed construction management and inspection services throughout that additional time frame. And when it became clear that we would not be hitting that July 2024 end, we requested a proposal for an amendment from Riley CM to finish out the construction phase of this project. Similarly, staff approved change orders throughout construction with Freelance. The first 3 are highlighted. I don't know if you guys have the staff report, but change order 1 was an additive change order because we were asked nicely by the city of Carlsbad to realign our new sewer, our new fail-safe in this reach on Palomar Oaks Way, because it was going to become in conflict with the future sewer CIP from the city. We agreed, and there were some costs involved in that. Pretty minor, although there were some costs, and that was basically what change order 1 was involved with. Change order 2 and change order 3 were both deductions at the end. We authorized change order 2 with a deduction or a credit of nearly $80,000 by substituting out over 2,700 linear feet of pressure CIPP trenchless installation with a different vendor, different trenchless technology called Primus Liner, which alleviated a lot of the constructability issues and the delays we were facing in the field. Some of these delays in the field were 24-hour operations where we were working around the clock in multiple 24-hour shifts back to back to back in order to get the pressure CIPP installed. That incurred costs, which the district also had to accommodate in the form of staff labor and overhead and field inspections, for instance, to accommodate that. And then change order 3 was additional overtime night work for those installations. It also included some additional potholing repairs and reduction in some piping appurtenances we had originally counted on. It ended up being another deductive credit for $80,000, which takes us to change order 4, which was a additive change order, approximately $450,000. Primarily, the primary reason for this change order was elevated groundwater conditions that were unanticipated in the field. And one of the challenges of this job and design was this pipeline doesn't have any access points. There's not a manhole you can go down to inspect. So it's a closed system. It's a closed pipe. It's buried everywhere. We were not able to inspect this line before construction. Normally we would go in and inspect, do some CCTV video, understand what's inside the pipe, and not just rely on our as-builts. But we relied on our as-builts because that's all we had. We actually uncovered some locations where we had pipe sags and bellies, or basically vertical deflections that go under storm drains in the street or creeks. This project crosses San Marcos Creek in several areas. So we ended up finding that in the field after the pre-installation, pre-inspection CCTV was performed. There was really no way for us to know that because it wasn't documented on the as-built. So, so that was also part of that change order for additive credit. And that took us all the way up to the 5% construction contingency.
And one of the things that Ryan is said to me, but for the committee to know is when we did the design, the initial geotechnical investigations, this prior to the wet years. So the groundwater table itself changed tremendously with 2 wet years back to back, 23, 24. So most of that design geotech happened prior to that.
Proposed change order 5 was really kind of a carryover of change order 4. Change order 4 and 5 were a talking point, a negotiation point, a factor between staff and Felance and Riley CM for many, many months. Really closed out 2024. I'd say the last 3 or 4 months, we were talking about this closing change order. And it originated much higher than it is what we settled on. But part of the elevated groundwater conditions involved us mitigating really sloppy soils in the trench, soil stabilization in the pipe zone, pipe bedding, which was required because it was just a mucky mess down there, as you can imagine. Additional cleaning and dewatering and pre-pipeline inspections inside the pipe to accommodate those CIPP runs. Those unforeseen pipe sags, as I mentioned, which involved extra work, and also additional asphalt paving and surface restoration within the city of Carlsbad, largely due to, again, the groundwater kind of losing the road, more or less, so to speak, because the soil was not able to hold up the edge of the roadway at the trench. So district staff received and negotiated the merit and proposed compensation of change orders 4 and 5 directly over the months of October, November, December. We reached an agreement in the proposed amount of $650,000. The only reason that's cut up into 2 different change orders, 4 and 5, is because we went up to the pre-authorized agreement 5% construction contingency in order to allow Felance to get file their pay application and receive payment on some of that effort.
Yeah, and I just want to say, for policy, anything over 5% is why we have to come to the board. So under that, we can negotiate that with the GM and its designee. So that's what triggers that.
It's set by board, by policy. It's a sliding scale. So smaller jobs have a higher percentage. The larger the job goes, in a smaller percentage. And then above a certain amount, the board sets the percentage.
Fiscal impact, the project was budgeted at just over $8 million. It is identified in the current fiscal year budget, 100% provided by sewer replacement funds. And as a 50% Buena Reach stakeholder, projects planning, design, construction phase efforts, including staff, consultant, outside services, is split 50% between Vallecitos and Buena. And staff really did a lot on this project. It includes project management, review services throughout planning, design, bidding, construction, Sequent Environmental, City of Carlsbad, environmental planning and biological coordination and permitting. Staff also provided the inspection oversight, coordination with operations staff during construction. Both items are highlighted in bold in the staff report. One for the Riley CM amendment number 1 for $192,455, and change order 5 for Felance for $197,455, which totals a budget deficit of $440,680. And because of this, the budget is required or needed to be increased to accommodate this increase, which is really largely attributed to schedule delays in my eyes. although there was more to it than just schedule delays. Just required additional labor effort to get it across the finish line. I can say that the project is complete. The line is actually in service to accommodate the construction that's ongoing in Metal Arc today for the expansion effort. Funds are available in the sewer replacement reserve to cover the additional 440,000. I think Wes can talk about that some more. And as the owner by agreement of the land outfall, we are responsible to budget 100% of the project up front, and then Buena reimburses us back, and we can report that Buena has paid over 3.3 million to date. They will be on the hook for remaining $920,000 after this is all accepted and closed out.
And we talked to them last week, and they're aware of this. They've been notified. We've had those conversations. They're understanding that unforeseen circumstances do happen in these type of projects. And while nobody's happy, they understand, and they're on the hook for that amount. So
the project is in line with the district's strategic plan and tactical initiatives. Achieved actually 2 objectives there. I'm not going to cite that, but it is in line with district tactical initiatives. So we do plan to bring this in on February 5th to the board. We do plan to bring this to Engineering and Equipment Committee next week. And so our recommendation will be to increase the project budget by 440,000 and to authorize general manager to execute amendment 1 with Riley CM, and to authorize the general manager to execute change order 5 with Felance, and then the file project acceptance on this project, file NOC like we do on all of our other CIPs.
yeah, so this item is for information only, but we are seeking the committee's support so that we can bring it forward to the board. So yeah, if you have any questions and concerns, that would be a good time to let us know, and hopefully we can answer any questions you have.
You always know if you got an engineering item in a finance committee, they're always gonna be asking for money.
I've got a question. Where, going east, what's the alignment of the 30-inch outfall? Is it in Delaware or Portland?
So this is the fail safe, the line
Going
outfall
east.
parallels it, going east, it going the other way.
Yeah, going
Sorry,
east.
east, the other way.
Oh, over here?
Yeah, it diverges.
It stays in the
Stays in
road.
Delaware.
Yeah.
So why does it parallel so long before it ties in?
So the fail safe doesn't tie into the outfall, the fail safe
Right.
goes all the way
Okay,
to
that's what
the
I missed.
to
It
the-
parallels all the way.
Yeah.
to the ocean outfall junction box, and there's a separate crossing underneath the 5.
Yeah, so right now, because Metal Arc's not producing recycled water, all that local flow is now getting treated to secondary and sent via the fail-safe out to the ocean, so we bypass this.
And the fail-safe is a pressure pump.
Yeah.
It is.
So it's pumped.
Yeah, but it operates in gravity, it undulates from gravity to
It
pressure.
cascades.
Yeah,
It pumps over a hill, cascades down, pressurizes, and said almost like a siphon, cascades down.
And in this segment, it's a very low pressure.
yeah.
Well, I certainly support the way the project went. Stuff happens.
Yeah, the groundwater is really the biggest, and then like Ryan said, some of those unforeseen inside the pipe, not knowing that there was bellies in the line, which caused just constructability issues, which delayed the project.
Seems like the more we learn about ductile iron pipe, the more we can sort of foresee that we're going to have very expensive repairs for ductile iron pipe. And at some point, I would like to know, because I know that there was work done in some of the neighborhoods in my district. This is also a ductile iron pipe. I'd like to get a handle on if there is any way to project where we're going to be needing to correct for the low quality of those pipes or the corroded nature of those pipes that were unforeseen, because it's costing a lot of money all over the district. And it's nobody's fault, but we need to think about that, I think. I have a question about, I thought somebody had said it was tertiary treated, but you just said it was secondary treated.
It's either one.
Yeah, primarily it's secondary, but it can be treated as well. And that's usually if it's treated, it's because there's some, let's say,
upset at
Just
the
a-
plant,
yeah,
either upset at
operational
the
issue,
plant
then
or
they've
offer.
got to get rid
Otherwise,
of
We can't send it
it.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
If it's forceful.
So I just have a question. If there is a spill and we know, I would argue that a spill of tertiary treated water is is a different kind of spill. than raw
Absolutely.
it
sewage.
is.
So when we have a spill that is treated water, are we fined less? Are we
Sure.
less concerned?
Yeah, good
How
question.
do we manage that? And this is sort of tangential to what we're talking about.
no,
here.
no, good question though. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still, the notifications, all are the same, whether it's primary or tertiary. However, the regional board, and especially in these cases, did not fine us. So I think they have a better understanding. It's still their purview. They can still fine us, but they typically don't.
Yeah, and a treated water spill is handled completely differently by the regulatory agencies than sanitary sewer, and the secondary is kind of in between, but secondary is still considered sewer. As far as in their eyes. That being said, one of the things that the district has had to do over years to kind of mitigate risk is treat tertiary, because we knew that the fail-safe was so vulnerable, because if you spill tertiary and show that you had the ability to do so, then you typically don't get fined, which is the results here. It's not a guarantee. Past results don't guarantee future actions from the regional board. However, now that we have the repaired section, there's a higher confidence that we could actually pump secondary, which will actually save the district money in the long run.
And if you were to do nothing, the line kept breaking, I have to imagine that the regulatory agency would really get aggressive in fines, right? Because you're ignoring what's happening to the environment.
As a matter of fact, the bypass line that the board's also familiar with, also, they actually give us a warning, give us a timeline when you're gonna fix the bypass, or else you will get a fine. So,
Okay. And also remind me, remind me, was this the project where we had some work safety issues on the job?
we're a contractor got
Yeah,
burnt.
we did have an incident with a subcontractor that there was someone had to be hospitalized due to really contractor safety
Sure.
issue, but it was kind of a middle of the night incident, and they had to be transported to the hospital for burn treatment.
And so, I understand that this was a subcontractor, but what can you tell me about how we are taking steps to ensure that our workers are safe? Anybody working on this project, whether they're our employee or contractor or even subcontractor, what measures are in place to try to prevent that? We want everybody to go home at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and it's never a good look when anyone gets hurt on a job site, whether they're our employee or a extension of our a contractor or a subcontractor. We do require that safety is under the contractor's purview, so they have to follow their own health and safety plan. We do require their health and safety plan for review to verify that there is one, and we can put it on file. So one of our early submittals is an IIPP submittal where the contractor submits their health and safety plan for our review. Once we validate that is in place and in action, we then go into a mode of observation and monitoring. So if we see people who are violating Cal OSHA standards, for instance, they're in unshored trenches that are more than 5 feet deep, that's a gross violation of Cal OSHA, and we have the authority to issue correction notices or stop work. And if it's a really an egregious violation, we can ask for people to be removed from job sites if it's really that bad. This was one event that happened that we did shut them down the next day. We basically shut down operations. It was a curing phase of the work. They were able to essentially close the pipe, allow the cure to take place, but then no other work happened after that because we made them essentially regroup and come back to us and report how they were going to correct the negligence or the oversight, whatever took place that led to that, how that was going to happen. Our own staff is safe because our own staff, for instance, our own inspectors follow Vallecitos safety protocols and policies and practices. So there's a bit of a dividing line between like me in the field or our inspection staff in the field. We are covered under the district's health and safety plan, while the contractors, staff, and sub-consultants are not directly following the district's health and safety practices, and that's intentional. There's liability reasons for that. Our general conditions are under our contract, every contract is written that way for that reason, to keep it separate
Yeah,
for
we have pretty
liability
strong
purposes.
contractual language that keeps us from taking on their liability.
Right. Okay. Did that incident have any bearing on the delay or cost?
No, the delays were largely attributed to, in my opinion, to workmanship, contractors' workmanship, subcontractor workmanship. We really witnessed a lot of inefficiencies in the field from the contractor's sub doing the lining work. It was part of the reason for change order 2, and we swapped out the material vendors because it was going so poorly and we were never going to finish at the rate we were going. We had to make a change. The change we made as part of change order 2 made sense. It was basically a even exchange, if you will, of products, and I can say that the installation of the Primus liner, which was the substituted material, just went seamlessly. It was very, very efficient. So
Yeah, but I think probably a good, I don't know, 80% of the delay is that groundwater, because it just
Yeah.
slowed production. They weren't getting the production, and that just really slowed things down.
Yeah, it's more pumping, more pre-treatment,
Yeah.
more and slower installation. So, and the committee members probably recall, because this went to the board when we decided to swap out, because we were getting non-performance in pressurized sections of the existing liner from the sub.
Mhm.
So we went out and got a different vendor to put in a better product, and this job was about a 1-to-1 switch. So the change order, the negative change order, the credit change order was basically reallocated to the other contract to install better product.
Yeah, this is the product we put out on Las Posas. I don't recall if either one of you came out in the field. It might have been
No,
Director
it was-
Pennick
yeah.
that came out. Okay. And it was that product that, and after we saw that installation, a light bulb kind of went off. We're like, hey, can we
Good.
use that over there and speed this up and get rid of all those inefficiencies that we were seeing in the field?
Yeah.
So it worked out really good.
Okay, I support this. It's unfortunate that there are things that happened, but they were unforeseen, and sometimes projects cost more than is budgeted, but it sounds like we were able to recover some money from, looks like there might have been some hard negotiating going on, and we recovered some money, and that's,
Yeah, the original number was more than double.
it was a success. The pipeline is in service. We achieved our objectives of getting it out of the easement area in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Buildings.
improvements came out of this project.
yeah,
So
good.
I do see it as a success.
Well, congratulations then on, from our committee. This is a large project, a project.
So next steps, we'll bring this to engineering and equipment committee. We'll bring it to the board, and hopefully with in the board staff report, we say both committees support it. But right now we'll say finances supporting the change. So.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Ryan.
thank you.
Yeah,
All right, cool.
unless you want to stick around for
Yeah. Thank you guys.
the fun stuff, unless you want to stick around for the party phase.
Right.
I mean, kind of.
Thanks,
Thank you
Ryan.
guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, moving on to the sewer revenue on the tax roll.
Wes, are you taking the lead on this one?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll just while he gets it up. So the board may recall, it's been in some of my monthly updates. One of the things, and one of the levers the district has, that's actually very common in the industry, is to move sewer rates, which are fixed rates to a residential, onto the tax roll. It's something that we already do for our sewer only customers. And it's also something that a lot of agencies do for their sewer customers, whether they have water or sewer. They do 100% of sewer collection on the tax roll, some of the agencies. That being said, any change has pros and cons. So today we're taking our first steps to see if there's an appetite for this committee and of course for the whole board to move forward with this. Because it is a lot of work, especially the initial setup. After that, it's pretty routine, but the initial setup is significant work for these people. So we want to make sure we have the, kind of consensus in mind.
And the routine might be just getting used to the additional work, even though it's still additional work. So we'll talk more about that. Good afternoon. I think we have two pretty interesting topics today. Now the engineers are gone. We can talk about interesting stuff. So, yeah, we got to have the finance committee party page. So we do have that one. Jason was waiting for this.
I was. This is why I came.
Are you wrapping both of these into one? Are you talking about both of them?
You'll stop it.
Okay.
So
Alright.
I'm actually going to do the first part of the presentation. I'll do the sewer revenue of the tax roll, and then Mike will go on the Proposition 218. So getting into the sewer revenue, the agenda, first I'll give a little bit of background, and we'll talk about the status, like what we've been up to and working on the project, the pros and cons, and lastly, the next steps. So the background, as we know, there have been significant rate increases from the Water Authority with like 39% over the next 3 years. And this has put pressure on us to raise our rates. And even without that, we're always looking at ways to keep our rates low and minimize the impact to the ratepayers and doing what we can to make their bills more affordable. So one of the things that we've looked at to do that is putting the sewer revenue on the tax roll. One of the reasons we decided to look at it is because we already have approximately 2,000 IDA accounts in our improvement district that are on the tax roll. Those are our sewer customers that are not our water customers. As you know, we come forward with that every year to improve that. And that's only being charged 10 cents per parcel for that. So it's a pretty minimal cost. So we thought we could take a look at this and see if we could possibly expand on that. And what we've done so far, we actually formed a team. And that team has met 4 times in November and December to talk about how we might accomplish this. And we've looked at it. And one of the things we decided is probably the easiest way to go about it would be to look at the fixed charges. We have commercial customers, single family residential customers, we have churches, we have schools. The commercial customers, a lot of them are charged on flow. Schools are like seats, might be students for this, for schools or churches, might be seats. But the fixed charges of the single family residential, that's the vast majority of our sewer customers.
And the fixed charge for single family residential is $38.99 per month.
Correct. And we have about 17,500 accounts that we're looking at today.
So what's our total? Close to
21,000.
21,000. So you can see the majority of our district is still single family residential.
So in addition to looking at this and how we put that on the tax roll while we were going through that process, we actually did a survey of other agencies in the area that were doing that as well to see what their experience has been, whether it be good or bad. And
I'm sorry, but the 2,000 ADA accounts, are they residential?
yes, I believe they all are.
There's a few that are actually on flow because we have to call Vista and find out their usage all the time. So there's a few.
Okay, so this next we're going to the pros and cons. So in the pros column, and we're going to notice that most of the pros are for the customer, which is what we're kind of shooting for. It would lower the monthly water bills for single family residential customers. So what I mean by this is you're no longer going to see a $38.99 charge on your monthly bill. You'll no longer see it monthly instead of just every 6 months and you get it in your property taxes. So your monthly bill is lower and you pay it less frequently, which is the second con. Pro, reduced frequency of payment. So by not having to deal with that high payment every single month, it just be once every, or twice a year, once every 6 months. It's a little bit more manageable, hopefully, for the customers, and you might allow them to plan more. And that kind of explains how it minimizes the impact of our rate increases. So instead of seeing just a larger bill and seeing it on a monthly basis, that bill will just be on the property taxes. Their water bill would actually be lower, well, depending on the rate increases that we have over the next few years. But so it should minimize the impact on the repairs a little bit, hopefully. And finally, there's a potential for interest earnings. Basically, what that means is they're only paying it every 6 months. So they get a chance to take that money and put it into an interest earning account. So they'll earn interest on the money that they're not spending, which would be interest earnings or savings on their total bill. On the other side, you hopefully notice there are no pros to Vallecitos in this exercise. On the other side, one of the cons, and probably the biggest con, is the cost of the district. And that's directly the opposite of the potential for interest earnings on the customer, because we will only be getting revenue every 6 months. We will no longer have that monthly revenue that we'll be able to put into an interest earnings account or into investments. And we lose approximately $52,000 in interest earnings. Then we have to pay another about $2,000 a year for the 10 cents per parcel. So the total cost of this should be somewhere around $54,000. It's not a large cost, but it is a cost.
You say every 6 months, aren't the 2 payments like 4 months?
It's like April and December, I believe. So I think it's every 6 months.
4 months.
Is it 4 months?
Yeah, it's April, and December, but it's twice a year. Yeah, twice a year.
We actually did on the net present value, we broke it down by month. We do get some of it almost every month, but it's
Okay.
small amounts. I guess there might be prepayers or something. But the majority of it comes twice a year.
And there's no way to do one on the tax rolls and one to the district. There's no way to split it.
Once per year? I think so. I think whatever you put on the tax roll would just come twice a year. So we could say we want to do half of our single family residential customers or something to that effect, which might accomplish the same thing, but we'd still get the 2 payments from the county.
Yeah, I'm trying to split the difference. I'm trying to make sure that, I'm trying to think about, can we minimize the cost of the district, but still see a lower bill for some folks.
Well, you also have to recall that the $39 is going to basically be close to if water authority goes through its rate increases. Probably about the same or a little less than what the water authority rate increases will be
Not in a year though,
over the next
3 years.
3 years, yeah. Yeah, so they'll see a bill that's lower and then about half of it or so will be swallowed up and then another third will be swallowed up and then it'll be essentially gone.
You say the cost to the district was lost.
Yeah, most of it, $52,000.
So it's not a huge number, but we want to be transparent about the pros and cons, so.
Next would be cash flow management, because we only get the payments every, twice a year instead of every month. We're gonna have to look at, our expenditures and when we're paying money out. So for example, the Encino Wastewater Authority sends us a bill every quarter for $3 to $5 million, possibly more for both operational costs and CIP. We have to have that money available to pay them when it comes. And if we're only getting the money twice a year and we don't have it yet, we can wait until we get our tax funds. So we have to look at our cash flow just to make sure that we have sufficient reserves to cover that and the ability to have the cash flow available. It does make that a little more tricky. And then finally is the administrative work. We touched on this a little bit. A lot of this has to do with getting the parcel information. So we're going to have to make sure we can get all of our parcels and have them accurately. And yes, most of the work comes, in the initial development of it, which we're starting to work on now, trying to get reports from IT so we can actually have it, system based and just through report manager so we can download the information annually. But there's still going to be quite a bit of work in keeping that up to date, adding any new parcels during the year. And we're going to have to do things like new sewer customers that come along during the year. We won't be able to send them to the county because we only send it once a year. So we're going to have to bill them monthly until the end of the year. And then we're going to have to send them the parcel to the county and then transition them from monthly to annually. So there's some legwork involved. It's not a huge work pill, but it is more work than we're currently doing. So hopefully it will become more routine and bring our recommendation to the committee and to the board. We'll have exactly what that is, or at least know really well. The thing we're most concerned about right now is that we can get 100% of our parcels and get them accurately. And we're looking at doing things like possibly talking to the county and see if they can do a dump download of our total parcels so we can compare, because we have information in GIS and we have information in North Star. And I think our most accurate information comes from our billing system in North Star, but it's not complete. So we're trying to compare that to GIS to say, okay, let's see if we can get all of the accounts together and make sure we have all 17,500 and we collect the appropriate amount of revenue. So a good check for that would be if the county actually has a listing of all of our parcels, they can send that to us, we'd have another check for it.
So this first year, if there was an appetite to move forward, there's a lot of logistic considerations. We're setting up new processes, how engineering and finance basically interacts when we bring on new residential customers. It's a new process. We're trying to, that's why Wes formed the team to basically start getting everybody in the room that's affected to say, how does this affect us and how do we set up a process to deal with it? And then there'll still be things that we miss, and there'll still be growing pains. But if we get the majority, the big stuff, the cleanup is not that big a deal. So we're trying to make sure we go into this with eyes wide open.
And the good news is we're already doing it, right? We're already doing it for 2,000 accounts, so we know how to communicate with the county, we know how to send them the information, we know the reports will get back. And we're preparing to do it the first time and trying to make sure we do it early. Because you basically send them a list of your parcels, and they come back and they say, here are the ones that are they're not working, they're errored out, either incorrect parcel number or things like that. So then you have to send it back to them until you get the complete list where they've accepted it, and we'll bill it for you. So we're planning on starting that process early if this is something
Have
that.
you talked to other districts that are doing it?
Yes, we have. We actually surveyed, we sent it out to, and I say we, Alicia.
Katie does all of it.
I don't know if we heard from Acadia. I
And
know we heard from-
OMWD does all theirs.
We heard from Lebanon, we heard from a couple other districts. They all said the same thing. We've been doing it forever. We've never had the issues. No one has recently transitioned or had experience with that we've heard from so far.
So how do they handle it coming out during the year, getting money tax from?
That's a good question. So part of it, and part of the next steps is going to be that. Next steps of the process. First, we want to solidify the parcel information, as I mentioned. That'll be a big thing. After that, the cash flow management. So we want to make sure that we have the cash flow that we're able to manage it. It's not too big, too difficult. And finally, the survey data. So we really want to collect the remaining survey data, finish anything like what their experiences have been, how they handle new accounts on there, and then once we've got all that information, we plan to bring it to the next finance committee meeting in February, and hopefully by that time we'll have a recommendation for the committee, and then depending on where that goes, follow up with the board.
And Director Elder, I'm talking to one of the other GMs for one of their agency. They basically said when they get a customer that comes on mid-year, they will, in the first year, they'll just get their normal water bill, but the first year of the tax roll, they'll get the prorated amount added. So you have a bigger tax bill, and then it'll go back to the normal.
And I remember I was in it on WD when I bought my new house there. It was actually on the HUD one, where the ins and outs of the escrow and all that, they actually charged me 3 months or whatever of sewer.
Oh, they did.
And then on the tax roll was the 12, well, half and half, but 12 months.
So they didn't actually do anything with it.
No,
No, this.
but that was a brand new home, and almost all the new ones would be a brand new residence.
Yeah, because it'll be a brand new property being built, because it's already there, it just keeps on rolling over.
Property taxes are part of buying a new home, rather than newer, so that's a possibility.
So you do, yeah, so escrow, putting additional on the property tax, there's different methodologies, so we're stuck to just, come up with what best works for our staff.
Is there anything else that makes sense to put on besides sewer fixture?
So our thought is, we may expand it later, but starting with the fixed charge would be the simplest, and seeing how it goes would be a good start.
What other things do you
Yeah,
consider?
we might be
We
able to
do
just go
ready
on.
to serve.
Yeah, ready to serve might be an option.
That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know if we could do the pass-through charges from the water.
It'd be too hard.
It's
because
it's variable, yeah, it's variable, and it's variable
Yeah,
based
they're
on.
so-called fixed charges, but they're
They're
floating.
variable
Yeah,
fixed charges,
the
yes.
variable fluctuations,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's,
So they
So,
only change every 6 months for us, because it's January to June.
and then we also have to take into consideration the steps that need to be considered if we change our fixed charge, with the county, so, because, there's still notifications, there's still, public hearing. I mean, similar to what we do right now with the 2,000 IDA customers, so.
Yeah, that'd be another thing, because we do our rate increase in January, this is a fiscal year thing too, so.
So, with that, our sewer, and Wes jump in please, because I haven't seen the latest numbers, but our sewer revenues and our sewer funds are pretty healthy. And at this time, it's not in our immediate radar to look at sewer rate increases. So, whatever we set.
I've been saying it every year for a long time.
Well, we're actually starting to spend some real sewer money now,
Yeah.
final project, when that outfall hits, which is $100 and something million. When that cash flow starts going out, the sewer rate revenue will have to be really hard.
It
take a closer
probably
look.
won't be this year, but probably, I'm thinking next year will.
I think that's important context.
Mhm.
The timing, is the timing aligned so that this would happen before if we decide to go through with another Prop 218, would this hit before the Prop 218?
About the same time. So it'll be July 1 is when we have to send it. Well, July we have to send the information to the county. It's fiscal year. So they'd start sending us money around August, I think it is. August.
And we're not to get too far ahead of the 218 schedule, but we're looking at hopefully in July hitting the new rates to catch up to the water authority wholesale rate. We're a new 218. So, so everything kind of works out with, the $39 comes off the bill at right about the same time, the new water authority.
Softens the monthly bill.
Well, it'll actually be,
Softens the blow.
yeah, it actually be more than soften, it'll offset the blow and then some. And then over the next couple of years, if the water authority does go through with its 39% increase, then I think, and help me, I don't know if you've done the math, does that 39% increase if the water authority goes through it pretty much offsets the full savings. So in theory, a customer's monthly bill will be about the same, if relative to today's
I
dollars.
just don't want it to look like we're playing a show game.
That's what I was thinking too.
Well, we'll have to communicate it.
Well, yeah, and
That
that's
takes it.
One of the pros there is some of our more vulnerable customers, which are renters, they will realistically see a savings. Now, of course,
it goes to the owner.
yeah, owners can pass it on, but at the same time, right now, with current rents are really high. The percentage of this increase on the property tax is really minuscule. That not every owner, can't speak for every owner, but in general, there's standards of, where there's pressure for owners to raise rents, and this doesn't exceed that threshold according to the HUD rules.
Yeah, and I mean, we can present it honestly that we're aware that, it appears to be a bait and switch or just moving it from one place to another. But we've honestly gone through this process and looked at the benefits to the customer.
Yeah,
when it
that's
was work. And,
Point there.
it's benefiting the customers, more work for us to benefit the customers.
Yeah.
Mostly that'll be understood that we're doing it.
Almost cost to the customer to benefit the customer.
Well, no, it would cost us.
Well, us is the ratepayer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's 54,000.
Yeah.
But I mean, me as a customer, I prefer to have it on the tax roll.
Yeah.
My bill would go down monthly. I can put that money in the savings account, earn interest on it.
Well, most people have escrow accounts, if they don't look that closely into the buyer.
I don't have an escrow account. I pay it, and I see everything in there. I'm like, oh, this isn't just 1.5%.
Yes, but not everybody's U.S.
So, I think, so let's say that there's not consensus in our committee or on the board, and we want to try to think a little bit differently about this. Could an argument be made, given, the regulations around different prices for different customers? And I know we're not allowed to do that, but if we were going to just offer to move the sewer to property taxes for some customers, is there a way that we could look at, for example, doing it with the census tract customers that are low income, choosing to do that for those customers? Are there regulations against that?
Well, our system's not set up that way at all. It's pretty blind to that. And so that's a whole different, that's a revamp of our systems, and I don't really have the knowledge to know what it would take to change our CIS system.
So these cons does not include something like that.
It does not.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah, but you also have to realize the administrative work, the cash flow, once you decide to do this, we're realizing the majority of those efforts, whether it's a half step or a full step.
Okay.
Maybe,
The difference will be the
maybe you're
54.
surveying them, some other agency might uncover.
Yeah.
There may be somebody doing it.
This first one is just to introduce the committee to this concept.
Yeah.
The next one, we're hoping to have better information and have maybe a little bit more in-depth conversation of how and if this committee wants to bring this forward for full board recommendation. And then at some point, we're gonna present this to the board with hopefully committee support, one way or another. Staff, and Wes, I'm okay with you if you disagree with me on this. Staff has presented this fairly neutrally. we can move forward with this. We think it's doable. We think there's benefits to customers, but with our eyes open, there's also a disadvantage for staff both on workload. The initial setup is going to be a big task. And because we want to get it right.
Yeah, I think the whole, doing it this way is probably the least amount of work for staff compared to if we were to choose customer types or any other.
Yeah,
Taking
I
hybrid
understand.
systems.
I understand. I would like to know if it's being done, just, because if we are, $54,000 in our budget, when we look at the totality of our budget, it's not that much. But if we are trying to be cost conscious, if there's a way to reduce the cost to the district, but also provide our customers some savings, those that need it the most, maybe there's a way to meet in the middle. But I'd just like to know if anyone is doing that. And
So we'll take a look at the survey.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So a positive note on the cost though, is that more than likely most customers can get more than that cost in return. You heard Director Grosset talk about investing in the Vanguard at 10%, doing that kind of thing. Our IR is limited to like 4.5%, based on we have state code restrictions. Customers can invest in much higher returning vehicles. So they can actually make more than this if we look at it from that point of view. So our cost is their savings. So even though our costs go up, in effect, customers should be saving more than it's costing the district. So we're going to pass those costs on to them later because net they should be saving.
I understand. I'm not convinced that your average family is going to do that. I just, families are busy and, oh, hey, I just, $38 that I don't have to pay on my bill. Let's sock it away. Let's put it in an investment account. I just don't know. And I don't have any data pro or con, and I know you would do that, and because this is your passion, and you're a wise investor.
Why isn't everybody doing that?
But I get that. I just,
Another
I'm not
scenario
sure.
is, $39 we can spend on something else.
Get from Starbucks.
It comes to tax
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
later
I
on.
mean, I
What's
just,
in the escrow account?
I hear that. I agree that is a pro. Whether it is a pro that is realistic for the majority of our families, I'm not sure. But it is a pro. If you're on the ball and, great, good on you for being able to do that.
And even our con at 54 to 52,000 in interest savings, if the inflation rate and our rate of return goes down, that fluctuates too, both up and down. So that's just based on our estimation now.
Yeah, I mean, that's today's rate, so it was 2%, it'd be almost half that or something.
Yeah, so take that into consideration. So, if we're looking at periods of lower inflation over the next X amount of years, you're cutting that number almost in half.
Thank you for doing all of that legwork.
We had a good team.
Yeah, thank you to the team.
And with that, I guess we already talked about questions and stuff, so maybe I'll just pass on to Mike unless there.
So ready for Prop 218?
I think so. We're ready.
Sure.
Are you just projecting that?
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
yeah,
gonna.
Yeah. That was that tricky. No, sorry.
Too fast with the clicking.
Right? Okay.
So, there we go. So we'll go to the camera right there.
What is that noise? It sounds like a
Yeah.
It's a-
Good afternoon. So we'll talk about, so a lot of times we'll say Prop 218 when we really need cost of service study and vice versa. So kind of just blend them all in. And if I say one, it means the other,
Okay.
just for this, this go around. So I'm gonna actually try to do this. So real quick, the agenda, we'll go over some of the terms we'll use. We'll go over our current cost of service study timeline, our cost of service study process, and then why are we here? What brought us here? And then the draft timeline for a potential new cost of service study. So I won't go over all of the terms. The main term right now is just the COSS, it's the cost of service study, and it's built on the premise of Prop 218. And to get into Prop 218, what I did is I cheated and I went to ChatGPT and said, just summarize Prop 218 for me.
Okay.
So really what it is, it's just a basic, a lot of regulations that control local governments, our ability to tax and assess customers. It gives the voters or the ratepayers or the taxpayers, depending on if they're government or special district, the ability to protest or vote on that increase. It also, since it's a property related fee, it needs to be based on a proportional share of the cost. So we can't put all the costs on client X for the benefit of client Y. Notice requirements, we have to give at least a 45-day notice from our, before we enact the new ones. And it limits really the power of the local governments to levy the taxes. We can't just say, hey, we need more revenue, let's go increase rates today. And also it's a stricter scrutiny on voter approval. So there's a lot of guidelines with the Prop 218 that we can't just do, like I was saying, X and Y. So this, I'm not going to go over everything here. This is the last Prop 218 that we did, or cost of service study we did. It was a 5-year cost of service study that we did, and it took months to do. It took probably 2 years to do because we started it when COVID started. So we were supposed to have this done sometime in like mid 2020, but it took almost until 2022. I have another timeline later. So it's just to kind of show you what we've done during I think we are now in year 4 of 5 of that current cost of service study.
So I'm sorry, can I?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this timeline. So the board meeting 2023 rates, approved rates for 2023, February 1st, 23. When did that rate increase kick in?
I have a slide on that.
Oh, you do?
Yes. So we'll get to that. I try to anticipate all.
You do a
questions, so.
great job of that.
So we've gone over this ad nauseum and all my other studies, but I just wanted to say it's really about the financial planning. Not only do we have the Prop 218 restrictions, we have our own internal restrictions. We need to have debt service coverage ratio. We need to have days in cash. We need to have all these other things. So it's even more limited than just Prop 218. And again, just making sure that each customer pays their fair share. So I won't go over this, pay their own way, the fixed costs, you allocate it based on fixed and variable. One of the things, and I know Director Althorpe, you always ask about our fixed charges and do we have enough? Can we put more on fixed? Does our fixed costs match our fixed revenues and things like that? And even then you can't get 100% match, obviously, but we can't just say, let's put more on fixed. We need 50% of our revenue to come in at fixed because of that proportionality between our customer classes. So there's a lot of restrictions on that. We try to match it as much as we can.
What is the kind of average percent?
So the 70-30 or 80-20 that it was supposed to be. It's especially now with our costs. If you remember how the water authority took, was it the transportation and made it from variable to fixed? It is just fluctuating all over the place. So I can get that for you. I just don't have it right now. Yeah.
Knowing what some of the other districts are.
Yeah.
Seems like 70-30 is kind of a
typical, yeah. So our current structure of the cost of service study, we did a couple of changes within that, but the biggest ones, we set a 5-year term for calendar years 22 to 26. That doesn't lock us in necessarily, meaning we can go back out for another Prop 218 if we do another full cost of service study. The cost of service study also sets just the maximum rates. Just because we say that the rates can go up 100% doesn't mean we will or can do that. And it limits, right now, our current one limited to pass through at 6.5% on the water authority and 4% on the internal cost. Wes and I just had a conversation about, in hindsight, in hindsight, did we know that there's going to be 8.2% inflation a couple of years ago, followed by 5.3% the previous year? We didn't know that. The 6.5% at the time, back in, like I said, we started this in 2020. The previous 4 or 5 years of water authority increases came in at 3.5%, 4%, 4.25%. Anywhere from 3.5 to 450 was probably the highest. So at the time, we had 5 years of data. 4.5 is the max. So we're thinking 6.5. Hey, we're good. Well, we won't. We're not.
They came in at 14 that year, right? That's when they requested 14.
Last year they did. I have that too on the next on slide 2. So again, this is just a rehash of what we did, why we're here, and I need to move this because I need you to read the bottom. So if you remember, these are the current rates that we just approved November of 24 for January 25 for bills mailed out in February. I won't go into that, but what I wanted to point out is that, as I mentioned back then, we are under collecting because of that 6.5% limit that right now, we're under collecting about $3.34 per meter equivalent on the typical family
As of January.
as of January, and 21 cents per unit of commodity water.
That's about 4 million.
I think it's 3.1. I have a slide on that too. So the combined rate increases, yes, they were 14.4, but again, as Glenn always used to say, your mileage may vary because of our mix of water authority water, our own WD contract and our desal contract. The overall mix came in at about 12.2% for calendar year 2025. Again, we're limited at 6.5%. And there's previous years, I have another slide on that too, that we were behind also. So it's a cumulative effect. It's not just a 1-year effect.
Mike, let me say one thing. So you may recall, Mike already mentioned this. You saw the fixed charges go 30%, and that's because the water authority moved the transportation charge, which wasn't fixed, on fixed. But our 218 still had a 6.5% cap on that fixed.
When did we know that they were going to move the transportation over to fixed?
November.
After we had passed the cap?
Way after.
No. We knew, let's see, in May of this, of 24.
Yeah, we made it.
We knew like after our budget was already approved.
But it happened, we did ours in 2022,
Right.
so.
So this, to me, the timing has always seemed a little bit squirrely. It seems like we make the best decisions based on the knowledge we have, but then all of a sudden we get thrown a loop like this, and it really makes it so that, one, we look like we're not being responsible, even though we are trying to save our customers money and cushion the blow of a really high rate increase. But when we don't get the information in a timely manner based on when we have to make decisions, we get thrown a loop like this. It looks, someone could say, well, I would have rather paid more than 6.5% if I would have known that next year I'm going to have to pay 20,
Right.
and that's tough.
And that's what
we do a budget in May, and Water Authority and Metropolitan both don't have the rates effective until the first of the calendar.
So the water authority has to wait for Met, because that's their primary source of water, not complete, but a large source. And then after that, so Met provides them information, and then the water authority gives their information. The water authority has been, in the last year and a half or so, much better about looking at their schedules, giving us projections, giving us high lows to the general managers, which they did not do at all, or if they did it, it wasn't nearly accurate before. And not to
They
defend,
waited till April.
Yeah.
May to give real numbers.
and those numbers were still not concrete.
right. And if you remember, I think it was 2 years ago, Director Althorp, the Water Authority said, "Oh, we're going to get you stuff earlier."
Yeah.
They were going to get you stuff in March and
Yeah,
April,
I do remember.
and the stuff they got to us was crap.
Yeah.
It was actually detrimental to us. It'd be better if we didn't get the information, to be honest with you.
Well, and now with the rates they're giving us now, I don't think anybody's prepared for this. Nobody set their cap. Well, some people may, but there's very few people that set their caps above, 20% to get to where we need to be. We said 6.5 because it was reasonable at the time.
Right.
We were talking about being like, hopefully it'll never get there. That should be plenty. And now we're looking at 14.
So lessons learned when we do our new cost of service statement on Prop 218, we'll have to look at, some of these caps and the way we configure them and between fixed and variable and things like that. So
And the very important thing is when we do the Prop 218, remembering that it's a cap. It doesn't mean we're going to raise our rates that high. It just gives us the ability to, should we need to, say something happens with water authority and they come through with a higher rate, at least we have the ability to do it if we need to.
Yeah, for customers say, "Oh, you're just gonna do the max."
It looks scary, and that's the problem. But they don't, and the customers don't understand
It's
that.
a public relations problem.
And customers don't understand, we really can't. If our cap's 20 and we only see a 2% rate through, we can't justify a 20% increase because it's still tied to that wholesale rate. It's illegal for us to do that, but
Well, I mean, just in general, if you say this is the max we can do.
Yeah.
I've heard customers say, "Oh, you're just gonna do the max."
Yeah.
Well, when we are, thrown a curveball like this,
Oh, definitely
we
had
have
to
to.
do the
Yeah.
max.
We have
Yeah.
to.
Right,
But we're kind of talking two separate subjects, but we're still in the where are we, and then not where are we going? Or how do we get here, so.
So again, just to kind of recap, we did a 6.5% increase, was about $6.80. Had we been able to pass through the full amount, it would have been another about $6.55 down in there. In addition to that $6.80, which would have made, about a 12.8% increase. Right now, there's about $3.1 million coming out of reserves specifically for the under collecting of these revenues. Now, we budgeted, I think, a $4.6 million loss this year, but about $1.5 million of that is because of deflated water sales. We already knew because of deflated water sales, because those 2 wet winters, we talked about it with the engineering one, the 2 wet winters that we had, our sales got deflated. We are picking back up, which is good news. But when we set rates too, we don't look at the ups and downs so much of water sales, we kind of smooth them out because you don't want to set rates based on, 13,000 acre feet 1 year. Yeah, 1 good year, 1 bad year.
Sounds water's already got trouble.
Yes,
Exactly right.
Plenty, so.
yeah.
They look at 1 year projected forward from there instead of averaging it out.
So here's a new chart that I brought up. Let me get this out of the way too. So here's our water purchases over the last 5 years. Our purchased water as a percent of our budget is growing. It used to be like 67%. Now it's 71 to 72, going up to 73% basically this year. So our cost of water per acre foot's gone from about $2,100 to almost $3,000 per acre foot. This is the blended all-in cost with desal, everything in there. So if you look in the last couple of years, 6.4, 9.7, 7.3, and then that 12.2 that we saw a couple slides ago. Excuse me, 1 second.
Do we know if the cost of water authority water is going up proportionally to the cost of desal water? Are they both increasing kind of on a parallel trajectory, or is desal water remaining sort of constant?
So the issue with desal, and one of these guys can correct me, is that there's the intake flow, what is it that they're doing around the dredging?
Yeah, so desal was outpacing in some cases the cost of imported water. And the main driver of that intake was a $380 million intake structure modification, which didn't provide any more desal water, but was done to modify it for the environment. And at the end of the day, that got tacked on, that cost and the capitalization of that facility got tacked on the desal. That and the energy costs are the main drivers for desal. In theory, this year, this is the first year that I know of, desal increased significantly less than the imported water. Part of that though is because they got a grant, like $90 million, or I forgot $20 million, whatever it was, for that intake structure, and they applied it. But it's on 1 year application. So next year, we're gonna see desal jump back up, because they basically, it's almost like a rate stabilization fund they use for 1 year.
So that's why with the water authority came in at about 14.4, with the desal coming in at 5, that's why our overall is 12.2.
Yeah. However, that
Yeah.
money is not reoccurring.
Right. So what I did is I did another chart with the customer bills for that same time period. Back in 2021, the average customer, again, single family residence using 13 units of water, 5/8 inch meter, was $92. With our last increase, it's about $111. Increases of 1.8 the first year, 4.9, 6.1, and then 6.5. Cumulatively though, the average increase from water purchases over that same 4-year period was 8.9% per year. For our customer bills went up about 4.8%. Part of that is we're eating it.
Reserves going down, but.
Yeah. The other part is because of our internal costs have only gone up about 4% that year, so that's helping a little bit.
And we had, like, for example, we had some offsets with increased revenue that wasn't anticipated when we changed our investment policy of how we do it, so that helped offset some stuff. But again, that's a 1 year, not a.
Yeah.
Those dates at the bottom, those are.
Oh, those are the dates, I'm sorry, you were asking about earlier. So the dates on the bottom are the dates when the rate increase went into effect. So in the first year, we put in a Again, this was supposed to be back in 2021. We didn't get it done until summer of 2022, so we put the rate increases into effect 10/1/22. Typically, our rate increases go into effect January 1st, but because we all realized that, hey, October to January, putting another increase in 3 months, that's just way too soon. So we extended the time limit for the 2023 to April. And then January of 2024, and then January of 2025. So then next steps. So that's how we got here. So really what we're looking for is to kind of like tear up the current cost of service study, current Prop 218, and just go right back out and start a new one. Get fresh data, better data, lessons learned, the limits of 6.5%. Probably we don't want to do that. Again, I know it's a psychological thing. People, if you put in 50% cap, they're gonna think you're gonna raise it 50%. But I think we really need to be thoughtful about that and not really limit ourselves. Again, even if we put 20% in the Prop 218, we can only legally do X, and then still board discretion. It's a maximum amount, and I know it's the way we'll have to work with Chris's group because it's the way we carve that story out.
The good news is we're not the only ones in this boat. There are many agencies.
Oh, wait, don't go there. Don't go there. Wait,
You're gonna get there.
Don't go there. I got a slide for that. I got a slide for that.
I only saw the draft presentation.
Yeah, so you didn't see that.
Yeah.
So really, this is an extremely rough schedule. Don't even write down any of these dates. This is just something I threw together just to get something in there. Working backwards, if we want new rates to go into effect 7/1, we'd have to have the public hearing, and I believe, I'd have to check with legal. Think the public hearing cannot be a regular board meeting?
No, you can.
It can be,
It
okay.
can be, but it's a public hearing. So
Okay.
it's a separate.
I created it on an off day, but these dates are very flexible. I just wanted to kind of put something in here. So working back, looking down the up, if we had a public hearing on 6/25, you have to mail out the public, notice the public, the actual Prop 218 mailer 45 days in advance to give the public enough time to review it. Threw in some board workshops here, and the finance committees in here. Questions are we gonna do it all internally? Are we gonna have a consultant? Are we gonna do it internally and have a external review of somebody to review it? Those are still to be determined. That hopefully we'll have some of those answers by the time we come back in February.
I mean, we've done Prop 218s several times.
Yes.
Do we, would the purpose of hiring a consultant be just to get someone else's blessing that indeed we found that we should increase rates X% and it might be shocking? Like, I don't, you all are competent. I'm not sure why we would need to spend that money.
Well, just for clarification, cost of service study actually develops the structure of your rates. It develops like a rate model. So you then
Yeah.
look at all of your costs, you put them in your structure, and that's your rate model / cost of service study. And the cost of service study actually is usually accompanied by an administrative record, which is documenting the cost of service study itself, how you developed your rate structure and the nexus for the costs. That way, everything is justified and legal in the administrative record. You use that then to say, okay, based on the rate model, we're going to put that into the Prop 218. So just doing a Prop 218 is really not as simple as that. We do have a very, well, I think it's a good rate model that we spent 2 years developing with a consultant. So really from there, we're talking to legal and saying, is our rate model still good? And do we need to make any changes to that in the administrative record in order to make sure that we've documented and covered things? There are recent occurrences, regulations, lawsuits, litigation, that
And new laws.
that we may want to consider in updating that. We don't have a lot of time, so hopefully there isn't too much of that to incorporate or too many changes to make. I think we can do most of the rate model ourselves in-house. And what we're actually leaning towards, I believe, as a team, is having a consultant kind of just bless it afterwards, along with our legal team to say, yes, you've covered all the bases, and we believe this to be a solid administrative record and cost.
And from a public perception, when you get an expert in the field, that's a consultant, granted, we're paying for the consultant, but they're still an expert in the field, they're bound by code of ethics, and they're looking at our work that's produced in-house. It provides additional, basically,
Expertise.
expertise layer and credence to the public that says, hey, staff developed this, but then they hired this expert and they reviewed it, and the expert said, yeah, this is good.
Mhm.
So instead of who's a staff member, are they an expert, they're just trying to get bigger rates.
Mhm.
So that's one of the advantages of doing that. It does add another layer, it adds a little bit more time, it does add a little bit of money, but not a tremendous amount.
So just so I'm clear, we are looking at increased rates that will hit February, and then we are looking at likely increased rates that will hit the same year in July.
No, we're looking at increased rates, so right now,
She's saying.
Well, what she,
already
what she
happened.
said is kind of correct.
Yeah.
February first, and then
She's
really
referring to this February.
August first. It's always a month later. So when I say January, the bills don't go out until February. If I say July, the bills don't go out until
Oh, yes.
August, so.
yeah, so that's correct, the board adopted the
Alright, so
normal
it's-
pass-through, yeah. The board adopted the normal rate pass-through, so customers on their bills will see increased rates on February bill.
When is the last time we increased rates twice in a year?
We've done it a few times, if you go
I
backwards.
think it was that last October.
October and April. So what the district is seeing is as of January, as of now, we are seeing the water authority's new rates, which went up to 12.2% for us. And we were able to offset that with our rate increase about half.
Mhm.
So we're seeing about half of that. Now, the money hasn't come out of anything yet, because this is just the first month.
Mhm.
But that's, so between now and then the year, that's projected to be 3.1 million, pending water sales, obviously.
Mhm.
So water sales can offset some of that, and we're hoping that, and even though it's bad to have a dry winter, but with the dry winter, the good news is we may have some water sales to offset that.
Well, and we've historically not done the same rate increases that have been given to us because our internal costs stay 4% or less.
Mhm.
So even if they go 15%, we might do 11%, just throwing out numbers, whereas it historically been less. So we don't anticipate doing 39% over 3 years ourselves, but 6.5% per year is just not enough.
Right, because the gap is growing and
Yeah.
it's cumulative, and we have.
And that's why I'm sensitive to what you're kind of going about doing a rate increase July and then back in January. But if not, then that January one is gonna be even
Humongous.
bigger.
I understand.
And so it's, yeah, so.
Because the water authority's rate increase projected for January 2026 is larger than the one that happened this year. Now, whatever they settle on.
Yeah, and for some other reason, the 3-year projection, that third year is always real low and it never stands up.
Yeah, I don't believe the third year projected. The first 2 years, I believe,
Yes.
the third year will
I don't know why
probably
they
be double
do
digit.
that, they're trying to fool.
I think they're trying to tell you there's light at the end of the
Yes.
tunnel. They're not telling you the tunnel keeps on going.
So real quick, so the current Prop 218, I already mentioned, covers calendar years 22 to 26. This is just a survey that we've done. This is a static survey from October. I haven't updated it. There are about 4 or 5 agencies that I know right now are going with a cost of service study Prop 218 that aren't on here. So their rates will increase. So when we get closer, I'll do another rate study, this type of rate study, not a rate,
Mhm.
overall rate study,
Rate comparison.
rate comparison study, and update all the latest figures. But here's my next slide, which I didn't want James to get into. That a slide on that. So here's all the headlines coming out from the newspapers and all the articles. If you look over here, 61% increase in 5 years, not 39 over 3 now. 11.8%, 7.4, 20% increases, 14.9% increase. These are all our local agencies. So
How's the Dow doing?
yeah. So this is all the information that James was alluding to, is that we're not in this alone, and that every agency around us is facing the same pressures as us, some even worse than us. Even up in San Francisco, 28% increase over 3 years. They had some other agencies. So it's not unique to us. I think it's almost surprisingly that we're in a lot better situation than other agencies. And it's why I say surprisingly is because of our desal, is that we're still able to have
We're still in the low end.
in the low end. And that really surprises me as an analyst that we are. But I mean, this is just to show you that it's not unique to us.
We can go back to the previous comparison slide, if you don't mind. So right now, we're towards the bottom, and if you think about it this way, and I know I've said this before, and it is a good story, so I like saying is we probably have the highest wholesale
Water
cost of
cost.
water. So our product cost is probably higher than any other agency in the county. And we're close to the bottom, near the bottom as far as water costs to our customers. That's not necessarily all good thing. And Mike and I have debated about this in his office a couple times, but it's still an amazing story. And even with these increases, considering what I know the other GMs are gonna be going through, everybody's sliding one way or another. And our relative position will be, maybe not exactly, but we'll still be close. Now, does that mean anything to the customer as far as, hey, look, it's still cheaper than my neighbor's cut water type thing? Probably not, because their bill still goes up. And that's why, even though it's a separate subject, dovetailing that sewer on the tax roll talk into it kind of relieves that monthly pain, or is a potential to, but it does have some cons. So even though those are two separate, one's water, one's sewer, two shall never mix, we're mixing them in conversation right now.
Well, that's a good story for the customer, when you tell them, your average, our average is fourth lowest of the 10-year.
Yeah, and
Even with the desal water, which
even
is
with the
expensive.
diesel, which is,
In spite of the diesel.
Yeah.
It's fine, desal water.
because desal water is
It's approaching
$4,000,
4,000.
like 39.
Right.
That's right, 39, yeah. So, but there's been some great moves by this board and previous boards and previous management to set up us in this position, and we're in a good position, and there's definitely action that is required. It's not fun to raise people's water rates, but I think at the end of the day, we'll still be an agency that sees the highest wholesale costs and one of the lower costs to our customers.
Mike, is there a reason why you put the city of San Diego right in the middle?
So
At 61%.
we all saw my bill. We all saw my bill last time, but yeah,
61% through 2020.
yeah. And like on OTI is raising their rates 12.7%.
So, and that's a 1 year,
Yeah, it's 1 year.
that's still 1 year. So some agencies are doing 1 year, some agencies are doing 4 year. So,
Rancho traditionally did a 218 every year.
Mhm.
Started the budget in January, very much like that schedule.
Yep.
Adopted rates effective July 1. And did that for 20 some, I don't know if they do it, probably not anymore.
In a way, I'd almost like to do that, but it's too much work and it's too much money and it's too much time.
Yeah.
But you're not projecting the total unknowns out there, especially now.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is too much work. So now it's a question of 2 years, which I think we're leaning towards, or 4 years.
And we've
so I
always-
don't,
So before this, we've always done a 2-year though, right?
yeah, we always try to do a 2 year. So a 2 year cycle is probably what I initially lean towards, because I believe the water authority's projections for 2 years are decent, and just to echo what you're saying, that also you're looking at 14, 17%, and then you go to 5.
Yeah.
Wait,
Where they
what
pull that
happened?
out of it.
Yeah, so, and then every time when I looked at the previous water authority records, it was always 2 years in the third year's cheap, or less of an increase. But it never worked out that way when you look at
Right.
actual compared to projections.
It's a
So,
moving target.
but if it is a higher amount that gets set, then there's more comfort in going out longer. But it makes the numbers look scary, because when you put the numbers out to the public, let's just say 20%, then it's 20% compounded over 4 years instead of 2 years. And even though we will hopefully never realize that, the numbers look scary. It makes it harder to tell that story.
And that is a legal requirement of Prop 218, that you have to have a cap. So you can't just leave it open, there has to be a cap.
Well, it sounds to me like maybe doing, at least while we are facing uncertain times in water rates, that we are not doing a 4 or 5 year Prop 218. It just doesn't, because the numbers are just worthless. As you project out longer, it just becomes impossible. Not that the math is bad. The math is very good if you're doing it.
And I want to say I
it's
use
like-
all encompassing math. I wish the other director was here, but I use all I'm fair. All math is open to me.
Yeah, well, I just think it just becomes not useful information.
Right.
By virtue of the unpredictability. So
And Doug, I think staff's in alignment with you. Right now, we're leading towards a 2 year, and once we hear something different going forward. So, for all the reasons that both directors stated.
Yeah.
So good news, good stuff. Happy days.
Well,
coming
that's
ahead.
not good news.
That's not.
The rest
Well,
of it.
no. Well, it's all relative. We're gonna be good news compared to that.
Yeah.
So,
It's a strange business. Tell people we can serve and then you cry because we're not getting enough revenue. Right.
Well, as I have said a bazillion times at this point, we can't make widgets and sell them and encourage people to buy fewer widgets. And
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Yeah.
We have to get alternative sources of revenue, or we have to figure out a new way to do business. And that's what we're doing. And when I was on the Metropolitan tour over the weekend, one of the directors for Met stood up and said that, essentially, she didn't use widgets, she
Yeah.
said. But she did say business, and we're not a business for profit, but we do have a product that we sell, and we get money from the sale, but we're telling people buy less.
Yep.
It just doesn't make any
I
sense.
think we're easing off the buy less.
we have been, but the state regulations
Yeah.
are forcing us,
Driving it
yeah,
down.
because it's, conservation's the way of life, so
Yeah.
we're required to do a certain amount of outreach of conservation to our public and certain amount of incentivizing, remove your turf program, all these other programs, and each agency is not only tasked, we budget and task, and we're basically mandated to do those things, so we are,
Walking a fine line.
yeah, we are openly doing it.
Conservation versus affordability.
Yeah, if you look at our social media posts, at least for last year, there's been almost nothing about conservation. It's been more of a, success stories and Vallecitos in the community. So,
Thank you for all of your work on this, all of you. Yeah, okay.
yeah, that's all we have for you guys today. I know there's only 3 items, but all 3 items have a lot of weight.
If it wasn't for the engineers, we would have been done on time.
Not sure I agree with that, but I'm outnumbered. so-
Well, thank you all. Anything else? Any other comments, concerns, or questions? Okay, then we are adjourned.
Thank you.